and welcome to another episode in the series. Not really much to see today, but I thought I'd take you through a couple of setups that you could use when you come to bake. Still probably a few days off a bake yet, so hang in there. Your starter should be getting a bit more lively at this point. I've got Clint here. I fed him yesterday, and he's kind of midway through his rise here. I've put a little elastic band on him just so I can see how far he's grown. It's not a bad idea if you kind of come down one morning and you think, has he done anything? Has it done anything? It just gives you a good eye of like a good kind of benchmark for what's happening. So yeah, I thought I'd just, given that we're basically just feeding at the minute once a day, before we bake, I thought I'd just give you a little kind of demo of a couple of setups that you can use with basic stuff you've got in, stuff that I've mentioned before, and hopefully that'll be helpful for you. It'll give you a bit more of an idea of what you might do when you come to bake. So first of all, I'm going to make no apologies for the state of my oven. I haven't cleaned it. I don't intend to. I'm not that bored yet. So if it looks like things have been baked in it, that's because things have been baked in it, and it's not a show oven, because no company is providing me with a nice clean oven. So just bear that in mind. Okay? Okay, so this is setup number one. This is what I use to bake sourdough. You can see I've got, it's on the bottom shelf, but it's quite a gap underneath. And that's my baking stone. So that's quite a big rectangular one. If you've got a baking stone, then great. If you haven't, then don't worry. So I've got it's like a big stock pot. I think it's about 7 or 8 litres, probably 1 foot or so across. And I've got that upside down on the baking stone. So what that's going to do is, so when we'll bake, we'll heat all that up together. We'll then take the pot out and put the loaf straight onto the baking stone. We'll score it and then we'll cover it back up. And that's going to allow the loaf to expand before the crust fully sets. That's basically what you're trying to achieve. You're trying to trap the steam that's coming out of the loaf in, basically. Just keeping that exterior soft, and that's going to give you it's going to allow the loaf to expand more before it crisps up. So that's setup number one. That's what I normally use. It's a good setup. It's a good home setup. It's kind of cheaper than a Dutch oven. I don't know if anyone's either got one or Googled one after I mentioned it in an earlier video, but a good cast iron one is probably going to set you back about, at least 40 or 50 quid. So this is a good alternative to that. You just got to be careful because everything's really hot. I use a nice thick towel. I wouldn't go using a flimsy tea towel. You need a good towel. But yeah, that's the way I do it. This doesn't involve any additional kind of steam. You see a lot of people baking and they put a tray in the bottom of the oven to produce steam. This setup doesn't need any of that. Okay, so that's setup number one. Okay, so this is setup number two. Bit simpler, a bit less dangerous, I think. You're not kind of handling, awkward, heavy pans and things like that. There's a lot less potential to burn yourself. You can kind of see there, so the silver tray at the bottom. That's just a roasting tray, maybe about 1.5 inches deep, and that's going to sit on the bottom of the oven. Don't worry about putting it on the bottom of the oven, it's going to be fine. And then above that I've got a shallower roasting tray that's a little bit thicker. You want to use your thickest tray for baking. I've just put a little piece of greaseproof in there just to kind of illustrate, you know, that you would use a piece of greaseproof when you bake. Yeah, so this is a similar kind of theory and sense to using an upturned stock pan, like I do on a baking stone. So what we're going to do is we're going to heat all this up, and then when it comes to bake, we are going to pour a good amount, probably, you know, half fill that bottom tray with boiling water straight from the kettle, just before we close the door. And what that's going to do is, instead of the steam that comes off the loaf being trapped by the pan, as in the previous setup, that's going to just create steam in the oven and just allow that bread to expand a bit more before it kind of sets. And I would normally do this if I was baking yeast leavened bread, so using kind of shop bought yeast. I still use my baking stone, but I just put a tray underneath and a bit of water. It just gives it that extra opportunity to grow a little bit, and you end up with a nicer interior to the loaf, and you get like a nice kind of crunchy crust, which is kind of what we're after. So that's the second setup. You know, I'll do a video with both, I think, and then you can kind of see the different kind of setups and how they work. So yeah, they're the two setups that you could possibly use if you've not got any other equipment. I feel like people, this is, you know, things that people are likely to have around the house. A couple of baking trays, a roasting dish, a big pan, that kind of thing. You know, if you haven't got a baking stone and you want to use an upturned pan, all you're going to need is a tray big enough for your pan to go on, basically. And yeah, so there are a couple of setups. Right, so I hope that was helpful to people. Just a couple of setups there of, you know, different baking techniques. Hopefully, you know, you've got the stuff in, you don't have to buy anything. And that's the idea behind that, just showing you a couple of different setups that are dead easy to do, you know, where you're going to get a really good loaf of bread. Like I say, we're not aiming for a picture perfect loaf here, just, you know, the achievement of starting a starter, baking a loaf of bread and eating it all in 10 minutes. So if anyone's got any questions at all about any of that, drop me a comment below, message me on Instagram, whatever you like. I'm here to answer questions and help you through baking a nice loaf of bread. So carry on with your feeding. Probably do another 2 days of once a day feeding, and by then, you know, you start with picking up pace and feeding a lot quicker. And then probably do a short video just about the day before a bake, and then probably midweek, next few days, we'll get a video out there about the day itself, bake day. So yeah, have a look through your cupboards and your drawers, see what you've got in that you can use, and yeah, happy baking. See you later.